Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you to Agnes and Andrea for the opportunity to speak to you. And it's my pleasure to talk to you about our Stop Saying Sorry topic this afternoon. And we already know that women apologise too much. Anyone relate to that? Yeah. And the research that I've done around it indicates that it has to do with our conditioning. And as we tend to apologise more as females than men do, I would say that it's a pretty good bet that that conditioning is our female conditioning. Would you agree? Yes. So, one more question. For those of you who do over apologise, find themselves over apologising, do you know why? Maybe you haven't even thought of it. Lack of confidence. Thank you. So I want to talk to you today about not so much the over apologising, which is really just the tip of the iceberg, but what's underneath it, and that is the lack of confidence, the low self-esteem, and really, in some cases, being a walking apology, not just what comes out of our mouth. And I'd really like to start that with sharing a little bit about my story and how I came to be someone talking about this topic and why it interests me. And I'm just going to make sure this one works too? Yes. So I'm going to start not too long ago, and that was my my menopause. So menopause is kind of like the thing nobody really wants to talk about, but I've found that it's been one of the most exciting times of my life, and it was also extremely difficult. Oh, look at the faces. Yeah, let me explain. It was also extremely difficult. Now, I'm a naturopath and have been this year 30 years a naturopath, and so, you know, I was one of those women, and it's not just naturopaths, but other women as well, especially those who think or pride themselves on being healthy. I thought I would sail through menopause because in our culture, menopause is a disease. Our medical profession labels it decline and decay, the beginning of. There's a lovely, right? And it's not the medical profession's fault. Oh, actually it is, if I give you the history of how that came about, which was basically the discovery of HRT, which is a whole different lecture. Where was I? We got distracted. The narrative around menopause is that it is the beginning of the end. And my talk really today isn't just about menopause, because that's what I specialise in my clinic, but in what's behind why women experience so many hormonal issues, stress issues, health issues that go back deeper and deeper than to just what we eat and the exercise that we're doing or not doing. So my menopause was, I kind of got to my late 30s, and I'd been this fairly rat-baggy adult. You know, I know that I'm saying this in public, but I shoplifted, I left jobs before I should have and bailed on things. I was really I call it rat bag because it's kind of teenage behaviour. And I stayed that way well into my 30s. And by the time I got to my 30s, I'd travelled all over the world. I'd climbed the Himalayas. I'd ditched several boyfriends. I'd just about done everything. Well, lots of things. I hadn't done drugs, so there's one thing. Just a little bit of just a little bit of pot occasionally. I do actually would like. Anyway, no. So I got to my late 30s, and it all started to crash because I'd done this really stupid thing. I was living in Canberra. I was consulting in the training and development industry, and my friend was going overseas. She'd met this guy who had a boat, and they were going to sail from Hawaii to around the world. And I went, well, I'm up for that. So within 3 weeks, I moved out of my house, got rid of my cat, ditched my job, and was on my way to Hawaii. Now, the fact that I'm super, super sensitive to seasickness never really occurred to me at the time. But anyway, within 3 weeks, I was back. It didn't work out. And I had this moment of, what do I do now? I can't just keep running away. I'm running away from something. And I recognized it because I was 38 or something like that. I had no keys, no car, no man, nothing, no debt, and I thought, I'm 39, the biological clock starts kicking in, really late, and what am I going to do? And so I made my 40s. I set my goal for my 40s to really be about what I thought were the important things for me to create, and that was I wanted to get married, I wanted to have a family, I wanted to have my own home, which I'd never had, and I wanted a business. I wanted my own business. So my whole 40s were really about creating that. And I got closer, in my early 40s, we started to try and I met the man. We started to try and get pregnant. I ended up having great difficulty with that because by the time you hit 42, 43, your chances are, pretty slim. But I spent that whole decade trying to do what I thought was what was supposed to make me happy, especially at that time of life and especially as a woman. Because I really didn't know. I didn't know myself well enough to know what I really wanted. I just thought, well, I've been doing what I wanted all around the world and I'm here at this age and I don't feel fulfilled. And so I'll try the other way. Anyway, I did get pregnant. It was through IVF and through an egg donor. And I remember being ecstatic. It was in South Africa. I had to go. It was a horrible story, another lecture. But the system in Australia is draconian and really, really heartbreaking. So I ended up going to South Africa for a donor because my mum's Dutch and there are lots of Dutch people over there and it seemed like a good idea. So I came back pregnant and within a few weeks, I started to get sick. And there's something called hyperemesis. Some of you might know. It just means, emesis means vomiting, hyper means lots of, and then gravidarum just means while you're pregnant. So I had that, and apparently it's quite common, and apparently it's fatal and life-threatening in many cases. We have modern medicine now. Modern medicine is good for a few things, but it didn't really work for me. So after I was getting to about 3 months, and I was skin and bones. I couldn't drink, let alone eat. I hadn't been to the bathroom, I think it was about 14 days at one point, because I wasn't eating anything. And so, and this has been a sort of a guilty thing for me ever since, but I had this realization that I was dying. I knew I was dying, but everything in my head was saying, oh, you're just given up, you're just, you haven't done everything, all that messaging that we get as women, that we don't try hard enough, we don't do enough, we're not enough, and all that kind of stuff came up. Anyway, I was in a really high-pressured job at the time with a boss who wasn't that sympathetic, and she really embodied this sort of masculinized woman that I didn't particularly relate to. So, and my partner at the time, we're spoiler alert, we're engaged, but my partner at the time was in underpaid job because he'd had a life crisis, that happens in your 40s and 50s, and ended up in a kind of transition interim job, which was retail, which was very low paid. So I knew that if I didn't work, that we would be screwed. So I had all this real pressure on me, and I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, to the point where I could barely drive to work. I was so afraid that I wouldn't be able to lift my leg to hit the brake. And I'd go to the supermarket and I couldn't make any decisions. I was so afraid. I was really, really afraid that I couldn't remember my PIN number because my memory just went. I had no taste. So the taste buds, I know anyone who's had COVID, apparently that's a very common symptom. Everything I ate tasted literally like cardboard. And so I had to make the extremely traumatic, challenging, awful decision at 4.5 months to terminate. And I was 50. So I went fairly quickly into menopause, which by then, I was no way I was going to try again, because people would say, why don't you try again? And even though I kind of looked young for my age, it was like, I am never, ever going through that, ever again. That was terrible. So I was at 50. Remember I said at 40 that I would do all these things. I had none of them. And I tried really, really hard. And so when I was recovering, or in that grief process after the baby, I it's just that grief, bereft, despairing, not sure what to do. And I remember in that moment going, God, Goddess, universe, whatever there is, whatever you believe, whatever's up there. For me, it was universe. I can't do this. I've tried to run my life for 20, 30 years, and it's not working. I suck at this. And so I said, it's over to you now. And I made the decision to not make any decisions, including leaving my job. So I threw myself into my job. Like, I would get there 7:30 in the morning, I'd work till 6. I was sacrificing my health, my relationship and everything to try and make this work. Because I thought, okay, I'm too scared to do anything else. At least I've got a job. I'll make my career about being executive in a company. And by the end of that year, I had a performance review that went very badly. So to me, I knew that it was on the cards, that this was going to be at some point the end of a working relationship. Even that was extremely difficult, because I was still vulnerable, I was still weak, still trying to recover. It was only a year later. But there were 3 really, really powerful things that opened up for me in that time that have led me to be where I am now and to have made everything that I've been through worth it. The first one was, I noticed on a friend's blog this conference called, not the Women's with Altitude Conference, I don't think it was around back then, but the Wise Women's Gathering. So I went out to Wiseman's Ferry, to the Wise Women's Gathering, and it was, it was hippies and bare feet and kids running around and because I was corporate, right? Even though I have a hippie heart, I was this corporate health trainer, naturopath person. And I found this woman called Jane Hardwick Collins, and she talked about menopause as a rite of passage. And I thought, I need to go to that, because I'm about that at that time of my life. Anyway, she blew my mind. She talked about the power of women, the power of menopause as a rite of passage, and that rites of passage are moving from one status, a reproductive woman, through this liminal phase, which is confusion and transition and all that stuff that we typically associate with menopause, and into the next phase, which in traditional cultures was the wise woman phase. I learned about this. I learned how we were connected to the seasons. I learned that the period is connected to the seasons, that the energy of your period is winter, the energy of your ovulation is summer, and there was so much that I didn't know. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. I've got to learn this stuff. And so I went deep diving into goddess mythology, cronism, wise women, all that kind of stuff. It absolutely brought me to life. The second thing that came along, I accidentally went to what I thought was a a business seminar in Melbourne because I happened to be down there teaching, and it turned out to be the art of feminine presence. And the art of feminine presence is really taking meditation and bringing that into everyday moments. So I'm doing it now. I've done it just prior to here because I was nervous, and it's really about applying meditation practices and presence work to do your own healing, your own embodiment. And then that rocked my world because I realized that being invisible and being nervous and being a self-doubter and having low self-esteem and being intimidated by masculinized bosses wasn't my future. It didn't have to be that way. What was missing for me was presence. And then the third thing, these came along all in quick succession without me really forcing it or anything like that. The third thing that came along was yin yoga. I was already a yoga teacher, but I hadn't discovered yin yoga. And yin yoga is something that teaches you concepts that are absolutely brilliant for women. It's not just the concept of yin, which we might know from Chinese philosophy, yin and yang and so on, but the qualities of yin that we have forgotten, that us westernized, yang-ized women, in a Western culture, in a patriarchal culture, that we've kind of left behind because we think that we need to be a certain way in order to be successful. So I learned these things about yielding, about meeting your edge, about working through discomfort, about being comfortable with being uncomfortable, about not backing off when you're uncomfortable. And it just also blew my mind, and it also brought in this sensuality into my life that I'd also been missing. And particularly when you hit menopause and the sexy stuff, you're not really interested in that so much anymore. Like Mia was talking about the male gaze. With estrogen out of the picture and the testosterone out of the picture for men as you get older, that whole sexy thing diminishes, right? But I wanted to be sensual. I wanted to be embodied. I wanted to love my body. I wanted to love myself. Always had a challenge with my body because I had an eating disorder when I was a teenager. Another rite of passage that we don't value in our culture. How many girls, this is another side topic, and how many girls go into an eating disorder right when they should be honoured and celebrated and exonerated and all of that stuff for being a woman. It's changing slowly, but certainly in my case, those skinny models that she showed this morning, that's what I just wanted to be that, right? So I ended up getting unceremoniously squeezed out of my job, which I wasn't, in hindsight. Well, at the time, I think I was relieved. And the only thing I could do, I knew I was never going to work for anyone else again. And along the way, I'd practiced as a naturopath, and I'd studied so many extra things. I'd studied fertility and personal development and life coaching and aromatherapy. I was an aromatherapist and a yoga teacher, and I had all these skills. And I thought, I've just got to do something with this. So bang, I went and started my path to purpose, basically. And I loved what you were talking about this morning. I've forgotten your name just for the moment, about a business with purpose rather than a business for purpose rather than a business for profit. And that's definitely where I wanted to go. And it was definitely about empowering women, and it was definitely about empowering the midlife woman, because the absence of a voice for the midlife woman is that we have a lack of wisdom in our culture. And how much wisdom is missing in our culture at the moment. How much stuff is happening that is stupid. Sick children, sick and lonely old people, mothers with depression, and how much mental health. And my own little snippet of this, my own little, just remembering that I've actually got slides, my own little sliver of all this is to empower the voice of the midlife, menopausal, postmenopausal woman, so they can go out and be activists for what's right in the world. And we can do that through our wellness, because being well, not needing drugs, not needing to see doctors, not needing surgery as a first resort, at least, not buying all that crap that's in the supermarket. All those types of things are a feminist thing. They're a political statement. Where you spend your money is a political statement. And yet how many of us are educated and well informed about nutrition? Like, most of my job in clinic is teaching people about food, basics. So my whole mission then is really about that empowerment to make women unapologetically fierce, feminine, and fabulous. And I've been on this journey for 3.5 years now, since I left that job, to find my way to do that. And I have to say, I'm not quite there yet. I do one-to-one work, clinical work, and all of that messaging comes into what I do. And I'm about to launch my first program, just a mini program, just put my toe in the water, because transformation isn't just about knowledge. It isn't just about learning. It's about enacting. It's about going on a journey from one place to the other place. And that requires a facilitator, requires a mentor. And I see that as my role. So there are a lot of things that I look back and on my life now as I reflect and as I start to step into my Mia phase of my life. She's got such big plans and such vision, and I like many of you and like Women with Altitude, we really align with that empowerment message, elevating us all. I find myself still saying, I'm sorry. In fact, I was buying some shoes, I think these ones, and within about 3 minutes or 2 minutes, I'd said I'm sorry to the 19-year-old boy assistant. I'd said 3 times I'm sorry, and I realised, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Because once you start becoming aware of it, you start to try and stop it, right? And I have a handout for you that has, and Kirsten at the back is going to hand them out, that has some tips on what to say instead. I didn't really want to make my talk here about that, because I really think you already know it. It's just a little reminder. What I wanted to illustrate is the deepening aspects of why we over-apologise. And so I'm just going to briefly mention my little 9-week baby that's being born, because my business has now become my child. And that is empowered wellness. So empowered wellness is about the feminine aspects of being a woman and having women's health issues. It's about empowering the menopausal process. And it's about becoming empowered through becoming well. You can't be well with tired, burned out adrenals. You can't be well without excellent gut health, and you can't have excellent gut health if you're stressed all the time. And so my discovery is that wellness is a path to transformation. Wellness is a path to empowerment. And if you're not well, can I say the key messages, and I'm about to wrap up, the key messages that I want to bring you today, that you being well will change the world. That you being well is a political statement. I can't tell you, I don't want to go into it in detail, but I can't tell you how different the world would be if we were well. That being well, you need to connect to your feminine. Because when it comes to creating boundaries for yourself, when it comes to saying, no, I need to go for my run, you can take yourself to school, not if they're a toddler, of course. When it comes to being well, you need self-esteem. To have self-care, you need self-esteem. And then finally, being well is a long game. We must give up the quick fixes. We must not let ourselves be seduced by the 30-day 30 kilos, or not 30 kilos, but 10 pounds, or please, let's stop being seduced by those quick fixes and realize that true health, well-being, and holistic health and well-being, which is what I advocate, physical, emotional, spiritual, as well as intellectual, is a long game. Thank you. Ooh, questions. So there's obviously the app for following up. If you'd like to, I've also, if you would like I forgot to mention this. If you'd like my wellness manifesto, which I'm also rewriting into a Femifesto as well, just on the top of the page, you can write your name and email address, and I'd be happy to send that to you, and you just need to give that to me at some point this afternoon. But reach out and connect. And if you're in a similar industry, reach out and connect. So thank you for everyone. And I'll hand it over now because you want to allow people to move rooms and that kind of thing. So round of applause for Kirsten and her dodgy foot.
Well, I think we need another round of applause for you, actually. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So if anybody needs to move rooms, can I ask you to do so very quickly? But we will be moving on to Chandu Bickford very shortly.
Thank you, Kirsten. How's that sound? Is that okay? Great, perfect. I'm looking around, and because we were down in the other room earlier this morning, there's so many faces I actually haven't seen. So it's lovely. It's lovely to see everyone. I'm actually really excited to be in this room because although I can be very loud and quite gregarious, this afternoon we're actually going to do some more internal work and quiet work, and sort of having more of a smaller cave-like space can feel good. Welcome to the conference. My name's Chandu Bickford, and I didn't even prepare an intro about myself, so I'm not even going to bother with that because time is really valuable and we don't have too much this afternoon. Okay, so what I thought I'll do is I was getting into the Accelerate theme. Yeah, I'm not really a car fanatic, but I was getting into the Accelerate theme for this. So I know the red line very well in my own business and in my own life. So I'm just going to, who in the room drives a car? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's good to know because we do need to drive cars. Yeah. Anyone never driven a car but maybe driven a Dodgem or something like that okay. Alrighty. So today we're going to be following an in the car sort of theme as part of our Accelerate conference. Alrighty. And business can be a great vehicle, yeah, for looking at using our values, looking at combining our passion and our areas of expertise as well as our values. Okay. But sometimes we can actually find quite a lot of difficulty in getting traction or hitting potholes or anything. Alrighty. So let me see. What do you reckon, Tyson? Can I get something happening? Oh, hey, here we are. My business is really about change, and that's what I support people with, is moving through change and transition. Now, in my 20 years or so in business, every single thing I've studied, every person I've worked with, everything I've read says, whatever you do when you're advertising, don't mention the word change. Yeah? And the reason is because change feels scary, uncomfortable, terrifying. Yeah, definitely something we don't want to talk about. It definitely doesn't feel easy or like a problem-solving thing. Okay, so what I've discovered is that I will refuse to not use the word change in my advertising because coming back to, is it Brooke? Yes, what you were talking about in your advertising and the ideal client is I want people to know that if they're going to work with me, we're going to be working on change and transition. Yeah, I don't want people coming to me thinking that they might be getting something else. Yeah. So this is my cycle of change. Ideas are opportunity. We all get that. We get a bit excited. We get all passionate about, oh my gosh, there's this great thing coming. Then we come down to a small obstacle comes up. Someone hates the idea. We get scared of the idea. We don't have the resources. Freak out and overwhelm. Procrastination and putting things off. And then eventually, hopefully, finding some clarity and taking courageous steps forward. Does anybody recognise this cycle? Anybody find themselves in this cycle? Sometimes several times a day. Yeah, okay. No, seriously, think about it. Like the opportunity, you get an email from school, from the kids, or someone rings you, or a client comes in, and all of a sudden you've got this great opportunity, you get excited about it, but then the dog vomits on the carpet, or, this is the truth, yeah? Like this is really where we're at. Okay, so when it comes to this, facing this cycle of change, ultimately, we all have this happening in our lives all the time, yeah. And I know this territory particularly well when it comes to change, I guess. So 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I was a nurse and I had a home and a husband and an art studio because that was what I did on the side. And then I started listening to my intuition, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And there was a little voice that turned up one day out of the blue, quite inconveniently, and sort of said, why don't you go to Africa? Oops. Oh, have I gone the wrong way? Yes, I think, Tyson, there's a thing happening for us here. Okay. Can I do it now? Am I still waiting? Here we are. So, this is me. I ended up thinking that it would be great to go overseas for 7 months. I didn't end up coming back to Australia for 12 years. Okay, so just a word of warning, no matter how good your spreadsheets are about what you're doing with your life, you may end up living in a mud hut in Africa with no electricity, carrying your water half a kilometre in a bucket from a tap that sometimes worked up in the village. And that's a really good day. That was when I'd had enough water for a bucket shower, not showing the bleeding calluses on the hands, and not really showing too many of the ribs from living on fresh air and mangoes. So sometimes our greatest ideas and our greatest moments of inspiration, are not as easy to move through in that cycle. Plenty of moments of terror, plenty of moments of fear, plenty of moments of what the bleep am I doing? Okay. 51 last week, the week before. Still having plenty of those moments, okay? But what I did learn when I was thrusting myself through these moments of ridiculous intuitive change, and really ridiculous intuitive change, okay, was that somehow and somewhere I would find a way to make it happen if I kept listening to that intuitive but inconvenient intuitive voice, okay? What I learned when I lived in that village, now we were about 8 hours bus ride, because we didn't have a car, from the main city. So coming down in a bus with the goats and the bowls of tamarind and all the rest of it, what I learned there was the art of business, the art of survival and working from business and working within the changes of our own lives. Yeah, following the seasons of our own lives, listening to what's going on and coming up. Needless to say, I didn't have a car if I didn't have water. Okay, but it's interesting today, most of us do have cars and we are using those cars. But what I learned from this place was that business is a way of actually bringing our passions to life as well as making a livelihood. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah, so this was where I started my first business from, back in 1999, with a $1,000 investment from my father, and which I could have put into shelter, which would have been possibly more handy. But I started working with the local women who had these beautiful arts and crafts, working with them, building an opportunity for them. This was before fair trade was even mentioned. So I built this business from the dust. Didn't know a thing about business. I'd been a public servant. My parents had been public servants. Didn't know a thing. So I started this little business, came back to Australia, and then decided backwards, maybe I should start learning business. Long story short, studied, no MBA or university degree, by the way, but then moving between countries, straddling these ideas. Okay. A big journey. I'm not going to go into that journey today. But the idea is that business is a great vehicle for us to move forward. It's a great opportunity for us to take our passions, like the women in the village who didn't have the opportunities. Yeah, I could take their opportunity, I could take their passions and turn it into opportunities for them. Yeah, I don't do that business anymore. I've now been back in Australia for 12 years. Yeah. But thinking a little bit about what is it in our own business that drives us? What is it that brings our passion to that? And that's what we're going to be looking at today. You will need pens and papers, but not just yet. Okay, first up, we're going to have a little look. I'm going to try. No, wrong way. Okay, here we are. So this is today's agenda. Okay, what turns our engine on? I've tried to keep it kind of family friendly. Okay, what triggers our break or abort response? You can do with it what you want, but I'm keeping it at a PG level for today. Okay, and what might help us accelerate away from the danger of procrastination and pitfalls and professional self-sabotage? Okay, so this is our agenda for today. But before we start, this is such a dangerous time of the afternoon. Someone who's been in front of groups and leading groups for years knows that this is a very, very dangerous time because people have got a bit of lunch happening, they've got a bit of digestion happening. Yeah. So normally under these circumstances, I would invite us all to get up and move around the room and I'd put some music on, but I'm going to do something even more dangerous. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and pop your feet on the floor and have a couple of breaths, okay? And you're going to need this because when we're working with our intuition and when we're trying to listen for our inner voices, we don't get that with all of the stimulus that's happening around us. We've had some amazing speakers today, we've had some amazing things going on, but the idea is to come back into ourselves, come back into the place. So just taking a breath in your own time and in your own way, having a breath in. And when you're breathing in a sense of calm alertness, not I'm digesting my food, going to sleep. Yeah? Breathing in a sense of calm alertness And as you're breathing out, just softening through your body anywhere where there's some tension or some stress, and just releasing that with your out breath. Breathing in a sense of calm alertness, and breathing out, just softening through your body, your face, neck, shoulders, right down to your feet. One more. Breathing in a sense of calm alertness, and then breathing out and just softening through your body. And then coming back into the room as a holistic mentor, facilitator and coach, I'm really mindful of the physical, the mental and the spiritual, the emotional side of us. We bring all of this to our work. Okay. And it's really important to be rested and focused before we go on a journey, and that's what we're about to do. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to invite you to do is close your eyes again and imagine that your business is a car. Whatever car you would love, just close your eyes and imagine that your business is a car. Now, driving requires many skills and knowledge, yeah? But it also needs us to respond quickly and to use our intuition and make fast decisions. Sometimes they're dramatic ones, okay? Now, we're not going to be out on the highway in this session, but just think about if you were out on the highway, what sort of car you'd be driving as your business. Okay. Alrighty. Now, as you're just imagining your car, I'm just going to say a few statements and I want you to feel in if any of these are actually true for you. Sometimes I feel like I'm driving with one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake. I move forward when I press the accelerator, but I'm not as fast or efficient as I would like to be. I move forward, but I wonder if I'm heading in the right direction. And then sometimes I end up on back roads, or I break down or get stuck in the same places again and again. Anyone recognise themselves in any of that? Yeah, can be really, really common. So coming back into the room. Okay, so today I'm going to end, this is not about me talking, this is about you working. Yeah, I could have stood up here and told you all about my amazing life, but that might definitely have sent you to sleep. So, no, it's actually pretty interesting. But I'm going to get you to do some work because this conference is about you, it's not about me. Alrighty. You're going to be writing. You're going to be writing quickly. Okay. There is no right or wrong answer. There is no second guessing what you write down first. Nothing is too weird. Okay. And there is no life or death. Okay. And you don't ever have to show this to anyone. You can eat it. You can flush it down the toilet. Okay. So before we get into the activity, the first thing is there is a disclaimer that despite the fact that I know everyone in this room has a level of brilliance that is just shocking, okay? This afternoon you don't have to be superheroes, yeah, or Marvel stars. You don't have to be a stunt driver, okay? So just keep it really simple. When I'm asking these questions, just go with what's really simple. Yeah, you don't have to come up with something really big. If something big comes up, fantastic, but not necessary. Alrighty. Most important thing, trust your gut, listen to what's there, get it down. Alrighty. Okay, so closing our eyes again. Oh, I know the danger's there, but keep closing your eyes, yeah. And revisit the image that you had of the business as a car. Come back to it. Closing your eyes, coming back, your business as the car. Now I want you to think about who's driving that car. Take a moment and imagine yourself behind the wheel. You're in the driver's seat and your passion is like the fuel. It's the vital form of energy. Now as you're driving that car, see yourself driving out on the open road. Imagine yourself steering your business like a car up that highway. Feel it moving powerfully forward. Feel it running smoothly and feel the momentum and the power of this as your business and the business vision coming to life. Whatever it is, doesn't have to be big, whatever it is. Now, while holding the vision and the feeling of this, I'm going to invite you to quickly jot down the answers to these questions. Here's our car. What are 4 things that you love about your work? 4 things I love about my work. Straight off the top of your head, not overthinking. Three things that drive me to succeed every day. And lastly, 4 responsibility I have that keep me striving and wanting to move forward. Okay. Now just take a moment and take a breath and just reflect on this information for a moment. Okay? Some of it might be new, some of it might be known. Now this is the sort of the big picture, yeah? But we all know that whatever sits on top, there's a whole lot sitting underneath. So what I'd like you just to think about is all the love and passion you've put into your business over the years. Think about all the responsibility you have had and you have still to keep it going. And I'm not just talking about in your business. There's just a huge amount of life admin and responsibility that we all have, whether we have children, parents, communities. Yeah, we've got really, really big levels of responsibility. So feel into that. Yeah. And then I'm going to invite you to feel into how tired you might be from that at times, or how heavy that might feel. Yeah? And sometimes we can get overwhelmed or bogged down. We can feel like we're stretched too thin. Anyone ever have those feelings every second-ish? Second? Yeah. So what I'm going to invite you to do right now is close your eyes again. You can pop your pens down for a moment. And just feel into that weight of the responsibility and the heaviness, feeling of being overwhelmed. Doesn't matter how great your business is, how amazing your family are, how many spreadsheets you can whiz out in 3 minutes, yeah? I want you just to pop it all down. It's time to rest. Just for a moment, just imagine with your out breath, just popping all the responsibilities just down for a moment. Yeah. And I want you to imagine yourself, you're back in that car and you're pulling the car over to the side of the road. It's hard driving all the time, no matter how capable or energetic we are. So pull the car over to the side of the road, stop it, undo your seatbelt and get out of that driver's seat. And then take a breath, imagine yourself having a stretch when you're out of the car. Walk around the vehicle, take in a bit of the scenery for a moment, and then come around and climb into the passenger seat. Now you can rest and let someone take over for a while. Keeping your eyes closed, I'm going to invite you to imagine another version of yourself climbing in behind the driver's seat. And this version of you is rested and clear and passionate about what they do and where they're going. You feel really comfortable about letting them take over because you know and admire their skills. You trust their judgment and you know they can handle the terrain. Feel the car pull back out onto the road and accelerate away. The road is smooth and empty, and you can rest and look out the window and relax. Just feel that seat supporting you. Feel yourself being carried for a little while. But as the drive continues, you begin to see things that are starting to distract this version of you, this driver. I want you to notice what's taking the attention away. What's distracting them? And then as the road winds on, this driver starts to become also a bit weary and more fatigued. Okay, and then grab your pens, staying with this quiet space inside, and just jotting down 3 things that are distracting the driver. Three things that are distracting the driver, and 3 things that are draining their energy or slowing them down or keep cropping up as barriers. Just really quickly jot them down. What's distracting them? What's draining their energy? What's taking them off course? Now with this, just remembering that you're a passenger or an observer here. Yeah? Have a look at what you've written down and just jot down if there's a first idea that might help them deal with these distractions. If there's an idea that comes to your head when you look at those distractions or what's draining their energy, just have a look at them. And is there something that pops into your brain as the passenger, as the observer, that says, why don't you try this? Remember not to overthink. There's no right or wrong answer. They're all just ideas. They can all be flushed. Alrighty, once you've done that, I'm going to invite you to just pop your pens down again. Remember, you can come back to this anytime, it's all there. The beauty of a short workshop means that you can have that feeling that, you know, when you get into the shower later on tonight, something's going to pop up, yeah? This is it. They're the shower ideas. They're the best ideas. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So the invitation is to close your eyes again, because all of this is just moving through you. Yeah. Close your eyes again. Pop your pens down. Let those distractions go and the tiredness pass. You are still in the passenger seat. Yeah. And the car is moving through some beautiful scenery. Your favourite music is playing. Have a bit of time to relax and reflect. The information you've just explored is swimming through your mind, but it's not worrying you. It's just sort of passing by like the scenery outside, like that landscape on the side of the road. So let yourself relax, and as you do, recall the passion you had for your business and the vision for what you still want to create. Vision is vital. When you get into that car, you've got to know where you're going. Yeah. So you know the journey, and now you know the distractions and dangers more clearly. And yes, of course, they're going to keep cropping up in day-to-day life. But because you're rested in this moment and you've identified some of them, you'll be able to deal with them more easily in the future. So feel now into what it is that you need to re-energize yourself so you can continue with the journey. What will rekindle your passion and refuel your tank to keep you driving this vision into being? And just feel into that. And then when you've got that, just jot down 3 things. 3 things that you can do to bring more refreshment, rest, and relaxation into your life so that you can be a better driver and a safer driver on the road. 3 things. Keep it really simple. And then just think about and perhaps write down how you would love to feel next time you jump behind the wheel of your car or a car. Yeah? How would you love to feel before you start your next leg of your journey? Because you do get a choice. And then every time you see a car or you slide into your own car seat and you're putting that buckle on, take a moment to remember and re-energize this feeling. Yeah? Our business journeys are long and they require quite a lot of stamina and skill. Looking after ourselves and listening to our inner intuitive voices and our own wisdom is actually vital in helping us move forward and to keep progressing. When we care for ourselves, we care for others. And establishing regular pit stops, services and maintenance can help us move with that. They not only mean that we get to where we want to go when we need to get there, but it also means that we get to enjoy those long Sunday drives, which is what we all do it for in the meantime. And so thank you for everyone. Enjoy the next leg of your journey, and as we would say in Swahili, safari njema. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chandu. That was fantastic. If anybody wants to move rooms, please do so very quickly. And just a reminder, if you're wanting to read these wonderful speakers' bios, they are all on your app if you want to log into that. So in just a second, we will introduce Ingrid Cucci. Ladies, there's seats along the side if you want to join in.